let's move on to Brother Bernard on CBS. So Bernie was talking about the infrastructure negotiations. We're supposed to have a vote on this $3.5 trillion package tomorrow. So this might be one of our last chances to talk about this while there's still any mystery as to how it is going to go down. But we're going to do a little mystery science theater, do dissident style here, and watch some corporate media and comment on it and tell you all how this goes. I thought this was a clip that is worth watching and worth commenting on. And so we're going to start this up right about now.
You got it, man. You got
welcome
this.
to CBS Mornings. We're going to begin in Washington, where President Biden is pushing fellow Democrats to unite amid disagreements in his own party over domestic policy goals. Mr. Biden met with House and Senate Democrats yesterday to work on two very big pieces of legislation: a $1 trillion infrastructure bill and a larger, about $3.5 trillion spending bill, social infrastructure it's been called. Two moderate Senate Democrats, Joe Manchin and Sinema, say the $3.5 trillion cost of that second bill is simply too high. Now, the bill cannot pass without their support. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders joins us from Capitol Hill for an exclusive interview. He was one of the lawmakers who met with the president yesterday. Senator, good morning to you. Your party's in a difficult spot right here. You've got as much as $4.5 trillion all told that could go to the American people, everything from roads and bridges to child care and health care, and it's all held up. How'd that meeting go with the president yesterday?
Listen, Tony, what we are trying to do is pass the most consequential piece of legislation for working families since the 1930s. What's happening in America, as I think most people know, is the very rich are becoming much richer while working families are struggling. And what we are saying is maybe, just maybe, now is the time for government to represent ordinary people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And what we are running into is enormous opposition from the drug companies, because they don't want to have us lower the cost of prescription drugs. The healthcare industry surely does not want us to expand Medicare to cover dental, eyeglasses, and hearing aids. The fossil fuel industry doesn't want us to tackle climate change. This is a consequential and enormous struggle. We're going to win it.
Well, Senator, I'm sure lobbying is going on, as it always does, but you're also running into opposition within your own party. You've got at least two senators.
That's the same conflict, by the way. Lobbying is going on, but you also have conflict within your own party. No, the lobbying is what's affecting the knuckle draggers in the party, who are Manchin and Sinema, who, if you notice, never get mentioned by name again in this clip. They mention them once at the very beginning, and then they say, "You met with Biden the other day," right? And that's just about it for Manchin and Sinema. Maybe they mentioned them one more time in passing, but it's amazing what the emphasis becomes in this video.
$5 trillion. Meanwhile, in the House, you've got.
And I also want to know who is his uncle? Who got this guy this fucking job?
I don't even know who this guy is. I don't know.
He brings look at him. Look at him. He doesn't. I don't think he even grasped the subject. Look at this guy. He's surprised to be there.
Well, he's not the only one.
Progressives saying if that doesn't pass, they won't vote for the infrastructure bill, and everything is in a standstill. Would you take less in the Senate?
Tony,
go ahead.
Tony, look, we got 50 members of the United States Senate. We're getting zero support from the Republicans, who do not want to lower the cost of prescription drugs. They don't want to make community colleges tuition free. They want to give tax breaks to their billionaire friends. We got 50 people.
Senator.
We can't lose one. So what we are trying to do is negotiate, and I think at the end of the day, we are going to come up with an agreement. Now, you ask me about compromise. I have compromised. The bill that should have been passed, in my judgment, was a $6 trillion bill. If you take climate change into consideration, that's the kind of money that we need. We've already made a significant compromise.
But would
Senator,
you consider a number less than $3.5 trillion?
No,
Have you
right.
talked
Look,
to Joe
we're
Manchin?
talking about numbers. You tell me what we should cut. Tell the working families of this country
That's a
that
great
we
point.
don't need to make
that's
it.
the point
make
that everybody
childcare
always just talks
affordable.
3.5
Tell the American people and the younger
trillion.
people that we should not address the crisis of climate change and try to save the planet. Tell the homeless people that we should not build affordable housing. Tell the young people that we should not make community colleges tuition free. All we are trying to do is address the crises facing working families and demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. They are fighting back big time. But at the end of the day, I believe we're going to prevail.
But we also know, Senator, listen, all of the causes you stated are all very worthy. We all get it. You don't want to cut any of them, but it gets to the point that you have to get things done. So what are you willing to do? What have you said to Joe Manchin? Have you been talking to him?
Look, there's been an enormous amount of discussion. Let me repeat. I originally, and what the overwhelming majority of members of the Democratic caucus want, is a $6 trillion bill. We have already made a significant compromise. Now, the president is, I was in the White House yesterday. The president is doing a very good job trying to bring people together. We will see what happens. But right now, we have got to address the needs of working family and finally have the guts to stand up to the big money interests who have so much power in this country.
But Senator, if you're here today saying you're not willing to take less than $3.5 trillion, it sounds like this is not going to happen.
No, you know, let me rephrase your question, Tony. Poll after poll tells me and tells you that what we are trying to do is enormously popular. Every single issue has widespread support, not only from Democrats, but from Republicans and independents. And I think maybe it's time that we stood up for the working families of this country and not for the drug companies and the health insurance industry and the fossil fuel industry. So that's the fight we're in now. At the end of the day, I think we're going to succeed in passing an enormously important piece of legislation for working families.
Senator, you're mentioning working families. We're a week away from the government shutting down, which means hundreds of thousands of government workers will not get paychecks.
Okay, we don't have to get into the
I mean, that's kind of relevant, man.
Yeah, but I mean, let me just, I mean, if you want, we can go back to that. But I would like to just put a flag there because Bernie talks about this problem in, I think, a little bit too abstract terms. He's absolutely right to say, hey, listen, you guys keep talking about $3.5 trillion is too much money. Why not, instead of saying that it's too much money, why don't you tell us what programs you would like to cut?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because that's challenging, because the $3.5 trillion pays for popular stuff, right? Universal pre-K, expansion of Medicare coverage, right? Things like that. So that's a good point. But by saying this is a fight against the drug companies, against the insurance industry, against the fossil fuel industry, again, everybody's heard him say that a million times. Right now, and look, it's not that that's not true. It's not that there isn't big money against this infrastructure bill, but that big money is now manifesting itself in opposition from two people in his own party. This is a reconciliation bill. So rather than point out that the Republicans are
trying to avoid that,
but he shouldn't, because what he's saying is the Republicans are giving us no support. Okay, so if you want to make a point that the Republicans are giving you no support, okay, fine. But that is another way of saying that, listen, over 90% of elected Democrats at the federal level support my $3.5 trillion bill, ostensibly. Maybe some of them are hiding behind Sinema and Manchin, right, and would vote no if they weren't there to be the bad guys, but we don't know that. For all we know, it's 48-2, which means literally, what is that, 96% of Senate Democrats support me and support Biden. And it's these two. It's Joe Manchin and that little demon in fucking Birkenstocks holding this thing up. And that is what he has to say.
Think of her, the one woman argument against representation as an absolute good.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, that's what he's got to say. He's got to turn the screws to them and say, listen, you're asking me what I'm going to cut. We got now over 90% of the parties on board here. Over 90% of the parties on board here. They're the ones who should be dragged onto bullshit shows like this and answer your fucking questions about what their problem is with all of this.
I mean, does Sinema even actually do that? I never see her on these shows. Manchin
once in a while will go on CNN.
Sinema.
Yeah, Sinema really doesn't. Sinema really doesn't. Do you want to watch the end of that with about the shutdown?
I think we should mention that because it's pretty significant, dude.
All right, let's see. See what they got to say about that. Where was it? Around
the health insurance industry.
Government workers will not get paychecks during a pandemic which has already rocked our country. What does the situation look like in the Senate averting the government shutdown?
Well, that's a great question, and obviously nobody wants a shutdown. But once again, I hope people appreciate it. We are getting zero support. We got 50 members of the Democratic caucus, 50 members of the Republican caucus. We're getting zero support. And at this point, although I suspect they will change their mind, you have a Republican leadership not helping us even deal with the debt, with the raising the debt ceiling, which would plunge the entire planet into an economic depression. So, we have our hands full here with important issues. At the end of the day, I think we will succeed.
It just seems a very frustrating place right now on Capitol Hill. Let's talk about. It seems so, Senator. Let's talk about police reforms. It didn't pass yesterday, despite enormous effort, bipartisan effort. You had Tim Scott, Cory Booker, Karen Bass working on it. Seemed to have momentum after the death of George Floyd.
Gail, you talk about enormous bipartisan effort. That's not true. I mean, let's be clear. You got a Republican Party which has become a right-wing extremist party. Cory Booker has done a great job trying to bring people together. On basic fundamental issues of police reform, we have gotten virtually no support from Republicans. And I hope people understand this. The Republican Party right now
I think they pretty much
giving us zero support in taking on the drug companies, giving us zero support in terms of raising the debt ceiling, zero support in terms of trying to prevent a government shutdown.
Senator,
you're right, Senator. Tim Scott doesn't really represent enormous Republican support. You're right about that.
Shit.
But the fact is, you did have senators on both sides trying to make a deal. It did appear to have momentum, some kind of momentum, after the murder of George Floyd. And if you can't get it passed after something as horrific as that, when the Democrats are in control of the Senate and the White House, what will it take to get police reform in this country on a federal level?
Gail, let's
bloody revolution.
We didn't talk even about voting rights.
That's about it.
All right. We didn't talk about the Republican effort in Georgia and Texas and other states to deny people the right to vote, most often people of color, young people, people with disabilities. Yes, the Democrats have the majority. We have control over the Senate, but it's a 50-50 vote. Often you need 60 votes to get things done.
Yeah.
We're getting zero cooperation from Republicans on major issue after major issue.
All right, Senator Sanders, it's always a pleasure speaking with you.
All right, Senator Sanders. That's our good friend Bernie Sanders, everybody. We want to thank him for joining our show tonight. Thank you for making the time.
That's right. That guy, man, he just, with that guy, you just want a soundboard with Al Pacino and Glenn Ross. Whose fucking nephew is this?
Oh, the anchor guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Whose dick what does he say one time? Whose dick are you sucking or something like that?
Why is that guy there? Why is that guy there? He's like a talentless lump of fucking flesh sitting in that chair. There is no reason for him to be on this show. Even less talented Chuck Todd.
Well, he's a minor. I mean, I think that's like a morning host, but it is one of the main
but why
stations.
him?
It's CBS.
But why him?
His jawline's pretty good.
I'd rather see my deli man, Jose. I would like to see him.
He's a handsome guy. I will give him that. Yeah, look, I mean, I think most people understand.
Like nephew of the Baron Harkonnen kind of way.
You're right. Look, I think most people understand.
Kudos to anyone out there who got that.
That the Republicans are being unhelpful in this process. I don't think that's any mystery. But that is all the more reason to say, like, look, this is a close vote. We hold the cards here. We are we represent the vast majority of the Democratic caucus. and we are supporting the president. Look, they are being smart to make it clear that Biden is with them and that they are with Biden. They're making the smart political move to attach themselves to the Build Back Better program.
Right.
Because they can then say, look, we're not obstructing. Manchin is obstructing. Sinema is obstructing. In the House, the 9 Democrats, 8 of whom are Blue Dog caucus members, they're the ones who are obstructing this.
Right.
And so, but that also doesn't seem to get brought up that much. Like Manchin is the obstructionist.
Not
here.
by the media. At first they were, and it's really like within the last week or so.
They're already
like a
starting
shift in their coverage.
You know, I posted because I saw Mondaire Jones actually had a fairly good snapback against Stephen King. I didn't realize Stephen King was such a fucking piece of shit. I mean, I always knew he was a bit of a lib, but I didn't know it was like this bad. He put out a tweet.
He was one of those hair on fire Donald Trump people.
Yes, that is true. But he put out a tweet that said something to the effect. It's not loading on my screen now, probably because I have too much shit open. But he said, memo to progressives: 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Why don't you figure this out? And because right now you look like children squabbling on a playground or something like that. And one user actually had a good retort, which I actually took a screenshot of and posted. It's like, well, how about you give me 30% of your money? You'll be fine with 70. Like, what? Keep 70%. What? I'm giving you 70%. Yeah. So I thought that was good. But yeah, I mean, look, at a certain point, and this is what we said in one of the last things that we did. At a certain point, yeah, it is going to become our fault. It is going to become the left's fault if this thing falls through, because they're going to say you guys are not willing to take another half a loaf. Now, Ro Khanna and Jordan Sheridan actually went at it on Twitter last night, because Ro Khanna publicly signaled that they were willing to go below the $3.5 trillion, and Jordan said, "Why the fuck would you say that? Why wouldn't you hold strong?" And so Jordan actually interviewed Ro Khanna on his show today, which I didn't have a chance to see. And then our friend Lauren Steiner is actually interviewing Jordan Sheridan about that interview right now over on her channel. So be sure to check that out after we're done here. Yeah, I mean, look, they might end up going below 3.5. It might end up being like, look, here are the programs we are not willing to cut. We need these in, or it's out. Or they might end up going down under that number. But nonetheless, Bernie has been smart to say, no, $3.5 trillion, that's it. And maybe at the last minute, you grab them when they're walking out the door and say, okay, 2.8 or, whatever. Right. But you certainly don't signal in advance you're going to go below 3.5. And I wouldn't go any below 3.5. I wouldn't go any below 3.5 because I would not invest in the Democrats' future or Joe Biden's future. Like, that's one of the good things about being in a situation like we're in, is we could just say, listen, here's our number, $3.5 trillion. Either take it or there's no infrastructure bill, and you get creamed in the midterms and you get creamed in 2024, and welcome Donald Trump back into the White House, because we don't give a fuck about this party. We don't give a fuck about the long-term viability of Democrats. This is our number. This is our chance. Because of the census and the redistricting and the gerrymandering and the voter suppression, Democrats are not going to be in power for a long time anyway. This is our chance, and we want the whole thing here. We've already given up $2.5 trillion worth of stuff that we wanted. We're not going any lower. And if we don't get it, we don't get it. Hey, we've come all this way without universal pre-K. I guess we just won't have it. You know what I mean? But you have to go for it all. I absolutely think that you have to go for it all. So I wouldn't go under.
Well, the question is, will they? And look, I'd like to think they will. You
like to think they will what?
Go all the way and hold out for the 3.5. My guess right now is this we do get a reconciliation bill, winds up coming in somewhere around 2.5. That's my guess.
I heard some people estimate 1.8, 1.9. If I had to get, I would say you're probably right. You're probably in that area if they do make a last minute deal. Which, like I said, I hope that they don't. I welcome that fight. I want the media to blame us for it.
I will be
do.
shocked
I really do.
If the Progressive sold out for 3.5.
I mean, look,
shocked. Maybe
we'll see.
maybe.
I mean, so far they've talked a good game.
They've never held out for anything before.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think it depends.
They've never shown a spine in the past.
When you look at what
past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior.
I mean, when you look at what Bernie said, look, we're talking numbers. Why don't you tell me what you want to cut? Which is an excellent point, because none of these people have ever said what programs they actually want to cut. So it might come down at the end of the day to which programs stay in and which go out. If they say, look, we'll give you universal pre-K,
well, they're not
and we'll
going
expand
to
Medicare.
do that. They're just going to trim funding for each program without cutting the program.
A single
entirely.
one? Well, I mean, universal
in theory,
pre-K.
that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Manchin is on record saying he supports universal pre-K, and so universal pre-K is universal. Now you can fund it well, or you can underfund it. I guess there's a question of that. But
or you can means test it.
Well, if you means test it, then it's not universal. Then you take the universal out of it.
Right.
And so, who knows exactly how that's going to shake out. But what I would say is, look, this is our number. If I were their coach, I would say, look, this is our number. If you don't if you don't go for it, good luck. And if you lose, you lose.